Okay, perfect. So, hello, friends. It is Jasmine back with another episode of the Beauty in the Network podcast. And today we have another amazing guest. Today we have Miss Sierra, and I actually found Sierra over on Instagram, and I am so excited to have her here because I'm always like peeking into her stories and seeing what she's doing. She's also a bridal pro, so get ready for an amazing conversation. But Sierra, thank you for being here. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and how long you have been in the industry and all of the fun details?
Hi guys. So I'm Sierra. I also go by Sierra Styles on Instagram. So I've been a professional makeup artist for almost 10 years now. I actually started kind of getting into more fashion is kind of was what I started in my career in. And a little backstory, I'm originally from Houston. So I'm a Texas girl and I'm here in Vegas doing weddings, brides, special events, red carpets, and just got the title of celebrity hairstylist last year. So really a lot of good things. I really love just the passion just with hair and makeup. I actually started doing more hair than I did makeup, but in the beauty industry, you kind of, test your boundaries, see what you can do. And I just happen to really enjoy doing both. So, which is really hard to find. I'm just like finding this out. I'm just like, why? Oh, not everyone doesn't do both.
Yes, that is so true. Like for me, when I went to cosmetology school, all I wanted to do was like cuts, colors, highlights. I wanted nothing to do with makeup. But it was so funny. Makeup found me after I had assisted at Charleston Fashion Week. So it's so fun that you have an interest in the fashion world. And you're over in Vegas. I bet it's very interesting over there, very fun.
I feel like I honestly didn't realize, when I first initially moved back, I knew people come here to get married, but I didn't know how big of a thing it was. And I think the pandemic really rose the bar on that. So we're like the capital of like weddings now. So literally I get brides from all over, which is really nice. Like I love my UK brides. And so it's just really just a kind of awe moment where I'm just like, wow, I never thought moving back, because I actually moved back to Vegas the second time. So I started my career here in Vegas. So when I went back home, surely having my son, I have two kiddos, so I'm a mom of two. And it was just kind of like interesting, just how things really rolled after when things kind of opened back up. So I've literally been pretty busy since then.
I love that. I love that. So for you, so I know you have your podcast as well. Can you tell me a little bit about, what made you start the podcast? And can you talk a little bit about, you being busy? What do you feel like led to you being busy? Was it being consistent online? Was it more perfecting your artistry? Tell us both of the things.
I think for myself personally, I battled with imposter syndrome. That
Mhm.
probably the thing, like I already knew I had the talent. I knew that I had what it took to, put myself out there. And I think it was myself that was holding me back. So I really felt between the pandemic and kind of like starting and getting where I am, it really took really a lot of self-improvements, some self-reflections. And honestly, the podcast was one of those things that I kind of felt like it kind of like helped me kind of maneuver through that, because not only am, the reason for my podcast is to kind of shed light and showcase other artists out there in the industry and really try to help those people out there who are trying to be entrepreneurs, because it is not for the weak, you guys. It's
Oh, yeah.
not all rainbows and glitter over here. We make it look nice because, obviously we're trying to sell ourselves, but behind the scenes, it's a lot of work. And being a mom and a wife, it definitely is a lot of, you're really just stretching yourself. You're like octopus arms, you're like all over the place. And so the podcast was really one of those things where I'm like, okay, what else can I do? What else can I give back to my community, because community is really big for myself. And I love to kind of like, there's just so many just dope women out there just killing it. And like they don't get the flowers they deserve. I don't feel like they're getting that light that they can really like shed and just share their testimonies. Like that's important to me. I love when I kind of hear other people's stories. I love being able to connect because I grew up a military brat. So it was a lot of, for myself, not being able to get those real connections for a long base time anyways. And so it's just really been really nice. It's been a lot of people like yourself reaching out to me about the podcast, and I really love what it's doing. And it's just really, I think at the end of the day, like you're going to learn something when you come on, you're going to get some tea, you're going to get some things that I feel like a lot of artists may not have the guts to maybe bring up. And that's kind of where I want to do. I want to kind of get into the nitty gritty, behind the scenes kind of things.
I love that. I love that so much. And you mentioned some things that I definitely want to go a little bit deeper on. So first you said how you have a love for, just helping people who like have an entrepreneurial spirit. Same for me. I grew up in a single parent household. I'm the middle of 3 girls, and my mom literally had like a bajillion jobs. And one thing that I did whenever she was, out working, because we weren't allowed to go outside whenever she wasn't home, I was always kind of like deep diving into YouTube. And YouTube, when I was in probably like 9th, 10th grade, I started to like dabble into the personal development world. And from the personal development world, I started looking at like girl boss vlogs. And I was like, what is this? Like these are boss women out here. They have their own companies and own agencies. And from a young age, I knew that I wanted to do something in entrepreneurship. I knew I had a love for the beauty world, but the beauty world is literally just like the stepping stone for me versus all of the a million projects that I want to do. And you said, being an entrepreneur, owning a business in general, it's not for the faint of heart. It's a lot of mindset. It's literally personal development on steroids. And for me, in the very beginning, literally the first 3 years, I kind of like double dutch, like when like you're about to like jump into the ropes. Like I was just on the edge, just swaying back and forth for literally 3 years. Because I had so much imposter syndrome of this isn't for me. Nobody in my family has ever done, any of the things that I'm looking to like do or create. And for a long time, I limited my potential for a long time. And it wasn't until I started to feel the imposter syndrome, but still push through it anyway. So for you, since you said, like you feel like you have octopus arms, like your mom, you're doing so many things, when it comes to your business and just being amazing and growing, how do you feel, or is there like a moment or a tip or a shift that you had to make when you were dealing with that imposter syndrome for you to kind of push through to see like momentum in your business or like major growth happen? Like, what was that like transformational moment for you?
I honestly think, and I always think about this because I'm like, dang, because you kind of like think about things like, how do we get here? Like it transpired things for me to get here. And I honestly would have to say that moment for me was 2017. I picked up the book Think and Grow Rich.
Yes.
And that book was it was mind blowing. I feel like where I was and at the place in my life, I kind of felt like, I wasn't working, I kind of was going through a lot personally in my life and really trying to overcome a lot of things that I was trying to have to figure out. And so that book, I honestly could say probably changed my life, my business. I feel like I got the focus that I needed. And it honestly was kind of went from there. And then shortly after, I had my daughter back in 2019 of November. And around this time, I started dabbling into my hair and skincare line. Something I've been doing as of lately, but I actually plan on relaunching by spring about spring or like either this year, sometime this year.
Okay.
I haven't got back into that space. But I did, end up launching that that year right before she came. So that really was kind of the start. I kind of feel like with my entrepreneurship for sure. But it also put myself in a mindset when it came to marketing myself and, getting myself out there and treating my Instagram as a business versus a personal page. And so I started to kind of like get all the pieces together, and like obviously hair and skincare I was having to promote, I was having to do this, and it was really fun actually. Like I actually stayed afloat during the pandemic selling my products. And so I don't know, I probably would definitely say that was probably those 2 years was probably the place where I can kind of see things shifting for me.
I love that. And, one thing that we were talking about before we even press record for this episode was we were talking about being more than just, a bridal hair and makeup artist. So for the fact that you said, one, you're big on helping other entrepreneurs and really, does like diving deep into Think and Grow Rich. That's literally one of like my favorite books, that and Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That was definitely a really like mind book that I really had like a big transformational like shift in.
Right.
But when it comes to you wanting to start a skincare line, did you like, what was the process like in your head? Because after speaking with a lot of bridal beauty pros, even just like beauty pros who aren't in the bridal world necessarily, is they have so many ideas, they have so many things that they want to do, but they feel like they have to get their business to a place where they're kind of like done with it and then start something new, versus having multiple branches of your brand that allows you to really diversify your income. So for you, what really intrigued you to start your own skincare line? And did you have any of those challenges, like I mentioned, like, oh, well, maybe I should put this aside, or maybe I should wait until I get all my ducks in a row? Like, what was that process like for you?
So I was very fortunate to have a business mentor growing up that happened to be my uncle. And so
Mhm.
he is very into like the holistic kind of living, living off the herbs, the oils, and all the good things. And so really growing up, I learned a lot of my entrepreneurship and still kind of reach out to him on just a lot of this business things when it came to like, hey, uncle, I want to start a business. He gave me the whole rundown, get your DBA, this is what you need to do, like getting all the legal part, down in the sense of, obviously doing it the right way. And not a lot of people know that. And so I think those are one of the reasons why I feel like with the podcast that I do with, but as far as the products, he was probably a good inspiration of that. But I can honestly say when I went to cosmetology school, I feel like I saw that vision for myself already. Like I was like, I had that vision. And so it wasn't until I was kind of like in this isolation mode one part of my life. And I was just kind of like, let me see what I have in my kitchen. And I just got experimental. Like it was just one of those like spontaneous type of situations, but I had so much fun doing it. And I was like, And so I was just kind of like doing like a lot of research in the beginning, like just learning like how to do things. So I'm not having to overspend all the things. And then I feel like, me becoming pregnant kind of motivated me to kind of see it through. And so when I kind of had the idea, I was like, okay, let's just run with it, And honestly, it was a leap of faith. It wasn't even like anything where I felt like I had to have all my ducks in a row, but I did take the time to research based off of like talking to my uncle of like the correct way of going about things, because to get ingredients and bottles and all the things,
Oh,
and then have
yeah.
these trials too, because there was a lot of trials and tribulations.
Yeah.
I honestly, until last year was kind of doing my products, I actually went into a whole rebranding of on my actual products earlier last year, but then things picked up with weddings. And so it kind of was one of those things I just didn't have the time to do because I was hand making them. These are handmade, you guys. Um,
Yeah.
so The only thing I did outsource was my shampoos and conditioners, but everything else was made by hand. So me having the time was really my dilemma on why I didn't really keep up with it. But now that I have had the skincare line for about 3 years now, I think that I know what's selling and what's not. And this is kind of like the part when I do this relaunch of really just selling those top products that did really well and kind of going with that. So it's less products and less ingredients, less, a lot of everything where I can kind of keep up and maintain it a little bit better.
I love that. And you said that your uncle is kind of like into like the holistic and, all of the natural, which I can't even say how all this is like that. I have probably like within like the last year and a half really dove deep into that because there's so many things that we're putting on our skin, putting on our hair, and we have no idea what these
Right.
things are doing to us, or how it's affecting like our hormones, or just like our energy or any of those things like that. So I love that he kind of got you intrigued into like the holistic approach and the natural ingredients. So I'm excited. I cannot wait to see your relaunch and to see a little bit more about your products that you're going to be highlighting and showing. And of course, I'll talk a little bit about it like over on our Instagram whenever you officially launch. So I'm pumped up. I'm excited for you.
No, thank you. I mean, it honestly, with just, this whole thing, even like the podcast, like I really think that it took one client for me to really, it's just, how you just feel like, I mean, I know I'm a manifester. And so when I do put my mind to something, it usually does come up, naturally. And I took one client and she just started talking to me in a way like only like God would have known for her to send me, to send her to me, to say that for me to kind of like ignite something in me. And so, and she just was like, you really just have a way with your words. And it's just really funny because I always never really enjoyed hearing my voice. And so getting into this podcast space was really different for me. I feel like it took a lot of like, just being okay with myself. It took a lot of like, girl, you're thinking you're in too deep, relax, so it was really a big process starting the whole podcast. But I feel like the more you do it, the more you surround yourself by people who want to hear what you have to say. I kind of feel like it just makes you easier. It makes it easier, but not only that, it kind of gives you a little bit more confidence to like, okay, girl, you can chill. So I'm really happy like you wanted me on here with you because it's just like, this is what it's all about. Just being able to, talk, reflect, and create awareness. I feel like a lot of podcasts is like really the main goal. Is there some kind of awareness in there?
Absolutely. I was telling one of the other people that was a podcast guest earlier today how more people listen to my podcast who become my client or who like just dive into the topics versus over on Instagram. So
Okay.
I told myself, okay, like we need to prioritize this podcast, okay? Because there's so many people who just want to be surrounded with, good topics, good conversation, in a very positive way that's going to help with our self-development, maybe enhance our business or just personal well-being in general. And I feel like the podcast is just an untouched area that a lot of people kind of underrate. Like, I feel like it's so much potential with the podcasting world. So I'm excited. I know you just launched like one of your like first episodes. Is that right?
Yeah, so I just ended up releasing my second episode for my first season. And girl, when you were like messaging me about I think I was asking about like promo stuff or whatever, and you're like, yeah, batch mode, and I was like, yeah, girl, like I would like in my head, I'm like, dang, I did things a little, not wrong necessarily, but I definitely am setting things up or haven't set things up in a way where I don't feel like I'm on a hamster wheel with it. And so like all new experience for myself, but now that I'm kind of like in the podcast world, I'm having to take time to research more into that. And so when I kind of got into like looking into seasons and things like that, the first thing they were like, some people take time to like batch record everything, and so that way they can just kind of put things out. And that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, okay, maybe I should have slowed down just a little bit better, but it's all curve. So, but kudos to you, girl, because I was like, whoo, every week is something
Oh
else.
my gosh, you are totally fine. And to be very honest, so for me, I'm a manifesting generator. You said that you are a manifester. So I'm a mani-gen, but also like my ideas, like they come quicker than I could actually, like implement it or, like process it. So from being in, like my podcast space, I feel like someone asked me like, when did I start the podcast? And I was like, that is a good question. But I think I started the podcast like late 2019, like a couple months before, the pandemic happened. And what ended up happening for me is I just kind of like, I'm gonna create an episode whenever I want to create an episode. And I wasn't necessarily as consistent as I thought I would because, we're traveling for trial runs, we're going out on weddings, and I had to experience what that felt like and what my time realistically was available for me in order for me to really fine tune, okay, we need to batch. How often do I need to batch? And also just finding my podcast frequency. I used to post like every Monday and every Wednesday. And then I found myself like, oh my gosh, I need an episode. It's a Monday. And then I'm like, let's just figure out a different flow that's a little bit more attainable and more realistic for the time that I have. So you got it going on. Don't even worry about the batching. Just do it how it comes naturally for you, and then you'll figure out what works for you. Because I have to have chaos first, and then I gotta fine tune it. That's just my process.
I'm the same way because I'm ADHD brain over here, and so I think not even an issue of like getting things, but it's definitely the time because I like life's and things happen, and so that's kind of like where I'm at, is just kind of figuring out like how much like of the capacity of it can I keep up with, because we all know like certain seasons are a little bit slower for us than others, so it's just kind of like I know like if I do something now it may not be the same later, so really just kind of like figuring that like soft balance is kind of the fun of it all, right?
Yes, absolutely. So with talking about balance, I would love to have like one last like tip or something that might have like helped you. So I know that you said that you have two little ones and you have a podcast and you have skincare line and you do bridal. So for you, when it comes to mamas, because I have a lot of mamas who listen and tune in to the podcast, I know for a lot of us, I'm not a mama yet. We're manifesting that into 2023, but I'm not a mama yet. But for mamas who feel like maybe they have mom guilt around spending so much time in their business or building or growing, what is something that has really helped you stay focused when it comes to doing all of the things that you want in your business, when it comes to like planning or like organization or just like forecasting for the vision that you have, alongside of being a mom who still has like the time and energy to show up for like your family and your little ones without letting life take, or without letting business take too much over your life and how you're showing up?
Oh yeah, that is a big one, and that has definitely been a new area, especially because how busy I've been.
Mhm.
Shout outs to my husband, because without him there would not be me around all of this, so he definitely plays a big part, especially just being married. But for those single ones out there, my best advice is just to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Self-care is probably the biggest priority for myself, because you work really hard, we all do, and I feel like even if it's just a little something, like try to do something that's that you enjoy doing, whether it's self-care, whether it's a hobby that you like to pick up or that you don't do a lot of, because I kind of lost myself in a sense of like, wow, what do I like doing? you
Oh, yeah.
Between family, work, and honestly, that's probably the thing that has kept me sane, is just prioritizing my time to take care of myself And honestly, being organized and like prioritizing time with your family is important. I think if you can do that, definitely make it a priority, because our kids, they see it. They see like how often we're gone. With my 7-year-old boy, because I have a 7-year-old and 3-year-old. So nice little gap, but I still got a little one, and then I got one that's, he's getting up there.
Mhm.
I definitely would say to just prioritize self-care. If it's hard for you, because I know for some it's really hard for them to do things for themselves, just do something that you enjoy doing, whether it's just time to just sit back. I'm a big Epsom salt, soaker. So if anytime I get that in, that's where I'm at. Also to just, knowing it's okay to rest. I feel
Yeah.
like that's the biggest part that was hard for me. It's like, if I'm not working, I felt as if, I felt guilty in a way. And I was like, why do I feel this way? Like I work hard, I'm there when I can. But just, be easy and gentle on yourself.
Yes, I love that. So some of the things that you just said, I definitely want to kind of like add in like my own little like 2 cents on it too, because it's so important when it comes to like running a business and having a family. When I was growing up, I felt like there was like this weird shift between, our parents' generation and our generation, and just creating our own perspective on how we want to run our lives and how we want to navigate. Because even when I was growing up and when I was dabbling into the personal development world, a lot of the moms who had dreams of having a business, it was like, oh, I have a kid. Okay, well, I got to be a mom now. That
Right.
dream is gone.
Yeah.
And when we operate like that, one, we're not doing anybody any good, because we're not going to be happy. We're not going to be joyful. We're not going to be full of passion. And when we truly allow ourselves to dabble in all areas of how we want to show up with our passions, with our interests, I feel like that's how you really find the balance, because there's never necessarily going to be like a 50-50. You got to figure out what your own balance is for you. But another thing that you said was, if you felt like, like what's wrong if you were like not working in business and like taking that time off for yourself.
Right.
There's a lot of talk around, and even in some spaces where it's like, oh, well, if you have an hour of free time, but you're not working on your business, or if you have an hour of free time, but you're not doing XYZ, then you're lazy, or you're this, or you're that.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's so important for us to define what our truth is, what our reality is, so we don't let, old paradigms of what people said was acceptable back in the day,
Right.
and bring it onto ourselves.
Right.
So I really love that. I really love that you said that. So before we go, do you have any closing words? And also, I would love for you to tell people how they can find you over on social media and all of the fun things that you have. But definitely, if you have any closing words, like what is your big piece of advice or takeaway?
My big piece of advice for people, whether it's whatever you're trying to do in life or for yourself, is just to make sure that you are clear on your vision. I
Mm.
think that is my word for this year. Is actually a phrase. It's called vision and flow is my word for the year. And I felt for vision for myself, it was that, I kind of felt as though I'm always kind of out there, kind of helping other people's visions and helping them get the things that they want to do, which I'm so game for. I love it. But this year, I kind of wanted to start putting my vision out there of like what that looks like, the things that I see and that I want to create, and having those people that I, met along the way and being a part of that. And it's a really exciting, I think, year for me, not only because I'm just doing things outside of my comfort zone and just really pushing myself a little bit further. I always feel that I'm only going to go as far. My mom used to say when I played basketball, you only go as far as your opponent. You need to just go and just shine. I was like, okay, mom, okay. So I think like getting out that imposter syndrome mindset, which I definitely have. It's definitely been a slow and progress thing because I feel like sometimes I still like have to pinch myself. I'm like, girl, you were like doing it all. And it's just like, sometimes like I feel like, am I doing enough? But then people are like, girl, what are you talking about? I don't even know how you're doing the things that you're doing. And so honestly, just being clear of your vision and seeing it through. I feel like a lot of people, they want to throw in the towel when things aren't like timing right. I feel like there's this time and like success that like comes into play. And I feel like you're going to get very discouraged if you are basing success off time. I didn't really start taking my business really serious until 5 years ago. And here we are like in the 6th year of that. And things are finally just starting to kind of like take off. And so, no one knows when it's going to happen, but as long as you are true to who you are and you have that set vision and you have a plan, it's going to come. So just wait it out.
Love it. I love it. That's so true. Like, even like going into example what I was talking about prior, like the whole double dutch, like waiting to jump in at the perfect time. And what if I would have given up, at that time? We would never even have a conversation. Like, I would never had this podcast, so many things. So definitely give yourself grace as you are working through the fine tuning of, you showing up and finding the confidence by just practicing showing up, on a consistent basis. And consistency is based around how you want to define consistency. It doesn't have to be every day. It doesn't have to be, every other day, but however consistency looks for you, you just have to find that through practice. So Sierra, thank you so much for being here.
Having me. Thanks for
Of
having me.
course,
You
of
can
course.
at Sierra Styles U, just the letter U. So SIERA Styles, the letter U on all platforms. That's also where you can find my podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, all the platforms, and YouTube. But yeah, thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Of course, of course. And friends, if you want to listen to Sierra's podcast, if you want to follow her online, definitely make sure that you check out the show notes. If you're checking at this over on YouTube, make sure that you check the description so that you can make sure that you follow her on all of the places and listen in so you can hear all of her words of wisdom and see and listen from some of her guests that she has on her podcast as well. So thank you so much for tuning in. And friends, if you enjoyed this episode, definitely make sure that you leave a review. What was your biggest takeaway from today? Make sure that you tag me, tag Sierra, so that we can shout you out for listening to this amazing episode. But we are done with another episode today, and you guys enjoy your day. Bye, friends.